Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. My name's Lefebvre and today we are doing August birth month flower. I have done the gladiolus, I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it, in the past for birth month flowers, which you can check out in the birth month flower playlist. But the other birth month flower for August is a poppy, one of my favorite flowers to paint, so that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's jump in and get started. Okay friends, today we are continuing with our birth month flower series and we are on to August birth month, the poppy, which is one of my favorite flowers to paint. So I'm going to be painting in my Etcher Lab cold press watercolor sketchbook. This is the same one we did our water lily in. I have my Shinhan watercolors. I have my size 8 and my size 2 round brush, and then I also have my pencil and my kneaded eraser so I can sketch it out first. Remember, if you are not that great at sketching, you can become a patron of mine, and all of my tutorials that involve any kind of sketching, there are tracing pages available. Okay, so I'm going to start by giving myself a guideline, kind of like what we did with the water lily. This just kind of helps me to see the flower shape of where I want to go and also place it on the paper. So I'm going to do a really loose oval shape. Okay, like that, really, really light, just so I can have a guide. Then I'm going to place the center of the poppy kind of more towards the bottom of the oval. Again, another oval, and this is the center. And then from here, I'm going to branch off and do my petals. So from here, I'm going to kind of come up. And we can do kind of like a jagged petal, and it's just going to come right back down. Comes kind of like a C almost. You want it to be more narrow where it is meeting the center. Then I'm going to have one kind of folded up in front. So I'm actually going to do this like jagged kind of like almost like a M. So I'm going to go, I said jagged, but I'm not making it jagged just yet. So like this and like this. Okay. Then I'm going to come down and scoop and meet it back up here. I'm just going to adjust it. I don't want it as pointed down there. I want it more of like a scoop. Like so. All right. Then I'm going to have another petal coming around here. I'm going to try and make the edges a bit more jagged. And it kind of can come behind. I'm going to have another one coming behind this one. This petal here is folded up. It's coming upward. And then there's another one kind of at the bottom here. I know it looks kind of silly, but once we get all the colors in there, it will look a little bit better. Okay, so I'm just going to erase that circle that we did, like so. And I'm going to make our oval a little bit more detailed. So I'm trying to think more of like a dome shape. Like that. And then poppies are going to have like these little lines, which we're going to do with watercolor after, but you can just give yourself a guide. They're like little lines that come off that center, and then they'll have dots at the bottom. Now, remember how I said that this petal, the top should be jagged, and I kind of just did this like stretched out M shape. If you want to erase that and then make it a little bit more jagged so it can be kind of like a bit more textured, because the tips of the petals for poppies are more on the jagged side, like that. Okay. And there we go. There is the outline of our poppy. So then we're going to do a little stem. So I want you to imagine like a line coming right through the center of that stamen and then goes right behind, and that's where your stem should come out. Now I also am looking at reference photos to see how the leaves look, the petals look, to give myself an idea. I like to go on Pinterest and just kind of look for like shapes of flowers. I'm just going to make these a little bit more jagged. And whenever you are painting a flower or drawing a flower, try never to, draw super dark, because you want to be able to erase the pencil marks so you don't see them underneath. I mean, if you do, it's not a big deal. but once you paint over them, you can't get rid of them. So just keep that in mind. Okay, then I'm gonna do a leaf kind of coming up to the side here, like this. And they have like these jagged leaves. It's gonna be kind of like a side view of it. Just jagged, like so. Doesn't have to be too detailed. And then I'll have another one over here. I'm gonna go right up the center. And then it's like jagged in, out, in, out. Kind of like so. Okay, like that. And there we have our poppy. Okay, so now we're gonna start painting, and I want to lighten up my sketch just a little bit so it's not as dark underneath the watercolor. So I'm just taking my kneaded eraser and I'm just rubbing it on the flower. And I'm gonna work on one petal at a time. We're gonna do a similar kind of detailed version like we did for our water lily. And you wanna work on one petal at a time so they don't bleed together. So I'm gonna create kind of like more of a orangey red. So I'm just gonna grab yellow and then my permanent red. Just makes it a brighter, warmer red. I'm gonna wash off my brush in my jar a little bit just to take off some of that color. So it's a lighter wash of it. And I'm just gonna go over this first petal, like so. So you want it on the lighter wash side, like that. Okay, make sure it's evenly wet. Then I'm gonna grab more just red and I'm going to tap it into the base here. I'm gonna do some like little lines, really light hold on my brush, and I'm just kind of grabbing the tip and just skimming it, and I'm bringing it back to the center of the poppy. I'm not bringing it outward, I'm bringing it to the center. I might tap off some of that color just a little bit and come from the top here and just bring down some lines too. So this is wet, so I'm getting some soft stroke blends, and I'm just making these little marks. I'm actually going to bring some of this red upwards, like so, to get this kind of textured look to the petal. And I might even grab, I'm going to make a little bit of a darker red here. There was a little bit of like indigo and brown in my palette right here, so I just mixed it with that. And I'm going to take some of that and I'm just going to bring it to the base here. So I'm making my shadow color. So you can always add a little bit of green to your red to make it a bit darker, or you can add a little bit of indigo to make it a little bit darker. I want it to look like there's a bit of a dent or like a curve in this petal, so I'm just adding some darkness there. And I'm just taking some of this paint to give a little bit of texture. Now, the key is I don't have a ton of paint and water on my brush. If I did, it would take over the whole petal. And I'm really just using the fine tip. I don't know if you can see how fine this tip is. And only the little tip is really the thing that's touching it. I'm not applying a lot of pressure, okay? So I'm gonna leave that petal now. And I'm going to grab a light wash of our like orangey red. And I'm gonna do a petal that is not touching that first one. So I'm gonna do this folded one. And this one's actually going to be a bit lighter in color because it would be getting the most sunlight. It's kind of sticking out. Okay, and I'm going to get a little bit more red, and I'm going to just kind of tap it towards the bottom here. So this petal is wet, and I'm just taking some of that red, tapping it to the bottom, and I might bring some of the red upwards just to get a little bit of that texture, those little line textures. And then I'll grab a little bit of the shadow color, just take a little bit of it at the bottom there, maybe a little bit in some parts at the top, but not a lot, like that. I do want to keep this petal kind of the lightest. Okay, so now I can't work on any other petal just yet because this wet petal is going to be touching this one, it's going to be touching this one, and this one. So I have to wait. So while it's waiting, let's do the stem. So I'm going to grab some green, and I'm just going to, grab some olive green, and I'm just doing the stem here. Just doing one wash, and we'll go back in and add some shadow in a little bit. And then I'm going to go over the whole leaf. And I'm just using the tip to kind of press and drag back to get some of those. So what's happening is I'm putting the tip down and I'm dragging back so I get these pointed edges. Using the tip of my brush to create the shape of this leaf. See that? And I'm just using some olive green, but you can use whatever green you have. Sap green's fine. I just love olive green. Okay, and then I'm going to come back in like so. Then I'm going to grab a little bit of phthalo blue and mix it with my olive green for a bit of a darker green. And I'm just going to come down the center with this darker green and just drop in some darker green color in the leaves. Like that, just for a little bit of interesting kind of shadow and contrast. Now this is actually, oh no, it's actually not dry, but it's kind of drying. So I'm just going to add a little bit of darker green up one side of the stem for a bit of shadow. And then maybe around the top, take off some of that color, blend it out a bit. Okay. There we go. Let's do the other leaf. I'm going to grab my olive green. Again, using my tip of my brush to get this kind of jagged leaf shape. I'm just pressing and dragging back. Like so. I'm going to take a little bit of my phthalo blue. Just tap it in there while it's still wet. Like so. Okay, there we have our leaves. Oh, I love the way those leaves look. All right, let's make sure that these petals are dry before we continue. Okay, now that they're dry, I'm going to start with our light wash of our yellowy orange again. Yellowy orange, our orangey red. Take off some of that color and just apply the lightest wash of it first. This is a bit more on the orange side. If you have a cadmium red in your palette, that tends to be a very like orangey red, so you could even just use that. Okay, I'm just putting it over the whole thing, making sure it's evenly wet all over. Okay, then I'm going to grab just the red. I'm going to bring it to the base of the petal here and bring some textured lines coming down to the base like that. Then a little bit of our darker red. I'm actually going to make a little bit darker red. So I'm just going to grab some red, grab a little bit of a dark green, and mix them together, and you get this kind of shadowy red. So just like we did with the pink on the water lily, same kind of thing. Now, because this petal is behind this one, I'm actually going to take some of the shadow color and put it around the side so it looks like it's behind. See how this one immediately pops out more, looks like it's a bit more in front. I'm going to wash off my brush. I'm going to dry it a bit. And I'm just going to blend this out so this is not as harsh of a shadow. But see how that makes that petal pop out? We're going to do the same thing over here because this petal is behind this one and this one. And it just makes such a difference. We also need to add a little bit more shadow behind this. Okay. So petals that are behind other ones should be darker or have like a shadow kind of meeting that petal that it's behind. All right. Okay, let's wash off our brush. Let's do this petal. Oops. A little too dark. Just wash it off. And move it around to get a lighter wash to start. I love painting poppies. I think I already said that, but One of my favorite flowers ever. I just love how vibrant they are. I love the shapes. Like the petals are never the same, like just the way they twist and turn and different angles. It's fun to draw them in. And there's not a lot of petals, so I don't find it as overwhelming as some other flowers. Like a rose has so many petals and it can be kind of tricky to get them all in there. I find this is on the easier side because there's not as much. Okay, so again, this one's behind, so we're going to make sure that it's darker, especially in contrast with the petals that are right beside it. And the tips are here, so I'm going to bring some red kind of coming out to the tips here. Like that, and then we want to make sure we get our shadow color. So a little bit of our dark green, a little bit of our red. I'm going to go right in beside this petal. Over here. Like that. Now, see how that shadow's a little bit more defined? We want to blend it out a bit. So I'm going to wash off my brush, dry it, and just blend out this shadow a bit more. Like so. Okay, and see how that helps just kind of separate them a bit. I feel like we need a bit more shadow in here. There we go. And then our last petal over here. Needs a little bit more water. Like that. Now the tip of this is going to be lighter, and then the base along here is going to be darker. So I'm just going to add my dark red, tap it a bit, maybe having some little lines. Like that. And then a little bit of our shadow color right at the base here. Like that. And it just kind of helps it to stand out just a little bit. There we go. Just gonna blend it out a bit. Like that. All right, now making sure that nothing, I'm gonna make sure that this is dry first before we do the center. Okay, and now for the center, we're gonna do, it's like a light green. So I'm gonna take a little bit of my olive green, but then also a little bit of yellow. So it's like kind of like a more of a brighter green, and I'm going to do a circle here. So that's almost a little bit too dark. Want it to be lighter, a little bit more yellow. And then we're going to wait for that to completely dry. While that's drying, if your petals are dry, you can take your smaller brush, take a little bit of the red and the orange and stuff, and you can do some more detailed kind of lines coming from the top of the petal. And I'm just like, I have my arm anchored down and I'm just kind of skimming the top with the tip. You don't want to have a lot of pressure. Anytime you're doing really tiny lines, I tend to have my brush more like parallel, like upwards. So you're just using the tip and you're kind of using this flicking motion. So you can just like skim the surface and just try not to have a lot of paint or water on your brush. So you can have just like a faint color. And then this one, you're going to have them come in downwards. And any lines that you are doing, they have to be curved with the petal. If you do straight lines, like stark straight, it's not going to give enough movement to the petal. So if I was doing lines on this side, it's going to curve with the shape of this petal on that side, or curve this way. And then right in the middle, it'll just have a slight curve. See that? And this one coming out like that. Okay, and then let's make sure this is all dry. And then our final step, I'm going to take some indigo with our small detail brush, and I'm going to do some little lines coming from the green outwards. Over here, you're not really going to see it, so you can just kind of do like a little bit of dots. And make sure to curve them a little bit, like a slight curve and as light, thin of a line as you can. Coming outwards. And then at the end of those lines, you're just going to do little dots. And then maybe even some at the base too. Like that. And then finally, I'm just going to do these little lines, like so. Do a dot in the center of the green and just do little lines connecting all the way around to that center dot. Like that. And there we go. There is our birth flower for August. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on all my other platforms for tons more content. Have a great day, guys. Bye.